Hello, everybody, and welcome to Two Marks, One Mic. I'm one of your marks. I'm Justin Thumbheart.
And I'm Dewey.
Hey, everybody, welcome to our first full episode. This is our first episode we called Firsts. Yes. Not only is it our first episode of the actual podcast, today we're going to be talking about our first exposure to pro wrestling. Dewey, are you ready, man?
I'm ready.
I'm so excited to talk about
this. And this is just a heads up for the viewers out there. This is probably going to be a two-parter.
This is a two-part episode. This is our first episode. It's a two-parter. We'll make sure we put a link to the second part in the show notes so you have access to it.
Yep.
And we'll always have show notes available if you have any questions or you want to follow up on anything, including a very special thing that I did for this first episode. I went and typed out a full Google Doc recapping what we're going to talk about today. And I am so excited to talk about it. We're going to talk about my first exposure to pro wrestling, which is Smackdown January 13th, 2006. And this was quite an episode of WWE television.
Yes,
we're both chomping at the bit to jump right in, but I want to add a little bit of context first and foremost. We're defining our first exposure to professional wrestling as the first episode of WWE or whatever wrestling we chose that we put on willingly, without somebody else putting it on for us and saying, hey, you need to watch this. This is our first sitting down, I'm going to watch this now. And we're going to talk about it.
Yep.
And, yeah, this was mine. I had watched a couple episodes of Smackdown with a friend who had me come over and watch it with him in the weeks leading up to this. And this we couldn't hang out that night, so I was at the point in my life where I still do everything that my parents said, and I said, I'm going to watch this episode of WWE Pro Wrestling, and they both looked at me like I was insane, but I did it anyway, and it was absolutely fantastic. And this is actually, I'm just going to say this is the first episode that made me fall in love with my favorite professional wrestler, Kurt Angle, with him as a professional wrestler. The guy was on another level, and he still is, even though he's effectively fully retired. But this was such a good episode of WWE TV.
For there only being 2 whole matches on the whole card.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing.
Because he sent me a link. He was like, you gotta watch this episode of Smackdown for the podcast. And I was like, okay. And I go on Peacock. I'm like, all right, let me get I typed in the episode, got it all up. I'm like, 2 matches?
Yeah.
It's just a one-on-one and a battle royale and a bunch of segments in between.
But here's the thing. The matches are so good that it feels like there's so much more to it.
I got that too.
Yeah. And we're gonna recap the whole show, everything that happens as much as we can. And the cringy bits and all.
Oh boy!
Because there's
gonna be some fun points in this where you're gonna hear Justin go, "Oh boy!"
Yeah, there's some moments that are just a little different, I think is the best way to put it. And this was in the thick of the Ruthless Aggression era. So let me add a little bit of context for everybody getting into this. If you want to go back, you can go back and watch it. I have a full recap in the show notes for us, so everything you need is there, and you can check it out. So let me add a little bit of context. At this point in time, John Cena has just lost his first WWE title over on Raw. This is the thick of the full brand split, if I can speak this morning.
We're in the Ruthless Aggression era.
We're in the Ruthless Aggression era, so it's basically discount attitude era, but it's still very, very fun. We have John Cena again, as I said, as your WWE champion on Monday Night Raw, but he has just lost the title at New Year's Revolution to Edge. Wow.
We'll make sure we talk about that show.
We are going to talk about that. And then this is the follow-up Smackdown episode, which is Batista is still your World Heavyweight Champion at this point in time, and he's coming off a massive reign. Both guys almost had their titles for a full year at this point in time. And this was, I guess they could say, this was the passing of the torch time for them, for WWE. We were coming off JBL being WWE Champion before John Cena, and Triple H coming at the end of his reign of terror as World Heavyweight Champion. And what a time, though, for them. As I said, we're still in the thick of the brand split. Raw's doing its thing, SmackDown's doing its thing, and they both have distinctive, I guess you could say, personalities as shows. Raw feels very, very different to SmackDown. And SmackDown is still trying to recapture the magic of the SmackDown 6. And they're doing a pretty good job, I'd say. It felt like a great show.
Now, just a heads up for everybody seeing this, he said it was a 2006 episode. I was 4 when this happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there's your little indication of our age difference.
Yeah.
But this was just such a good episode, and forgive me if I have my nostalgia glasses on for this, but let's get right into it. So our opening segment, and if if you've seen WWE TV, they have a massive cliche to start things off. They have an opening talking segment, an opening promo segment, but this one's different. We open up with Batista doing his grand entrance. He's in a full suit and tie and everything for this entrance, and then he's still your World Heavyweight Champion, and he comes out, and Teddy Long's right behind him, and Teddy's got the most solemn look on his face. He's not smiling. He's not doing his little Teddy dance that he always does. He looks like he's headed to a funeral, quite frankly. And even Batista seems a little off. But I want to first say, the pop when I Walk Alone hits is insane.
One of the best wrestling theme songs.
Oh my gosh, the people were in love with Batista. And again, I was brand new, so I was like, holy cow, this guy looks and feels like he's
the monster.
He is the monster. He is the guy on Friday Night Smackdown. He is defining what it is to be a World Heavyweight Champion. And again, I'd only really watched SmackDown up until this point. And I had known he had just been a SmackDown Tag Team Champion with Rey Mysterio. That was really, really cool, and that was a thing. And they were doing their thing on SmackDown. They had lost them to Eminem in a steel cage match previously, and it was a really good time to be watching SmackDown because they were giving you compelling television. That being said, there's a controversial thing that they were doing with what's the best word for it, with the situation with Melina that they were promoting.
Oh boy,
putting it nicely. They were saying Batista made unwanted advances and attempted to sexually harass Melina, and I was like, I'm not super comfortable with that. And it even watching it now, like, this doesn't feel like right. I don't know what they were going for with this, but it doesn't. It's not
very weird.
It's very strange.
That was a very weird couple to get paired together. Randomly, Eminem's manager and Batista are running off together,
and then
very weird to think that. I'm still very up in the air with that one too. Talking about, because I don't know that much info about it, to be real.
Yeah, I don't know what they were going for storyline wise. Really, I know. Melina brought in Mark Henry to be her heavy to deal with Batista afterward. And it wasn't really. It was very confusing. I was a little uncomfortable. But let's get back to the segment and section in general. I mean, the segment and section in general. So number one, again, the pop for Batista is insane. The crowd is freaking out that the world champion's starting Friday Night SmackDown. Cole and Taz are your commentators for the evening. That was so great. That was
such a good team.
That was a great pairing. And I, before I go any farther, I just want to comment, the opening hype package for SmackDown, like the opening theme song, is just so good, and it made SmackDown feel like it was on another level. Completely separate from Monday Night Raw, too.
You know what I miss from old WWE shows, watching all these, Ruthless Aggression? The moving image match pictures.
Yes.
I believe AEW did something with that. They need to bring more of those back. Those were entertaining.
I enjoyed those. That was really, really fun. The only ones I don't like are where the wrestlers got their back to you and they turn around. I'm like, that's a little awkward. Yeah. Not even weird. It's just, why? Why are you not?
Why would you turn your back?
Don't turn your back to the camera. But so at this point in time, Batista comes out. He's the World Heavyweight Champion, and then you immediately feel the air go out of the room because he breaks the news. He's vacating the World Heavyweight Championship. He says he had a legitimate tricep tear, which in kayfabe had been done by Mark Henry. Mark Henry hit him with a door from a steel cage. Henry ripped. I remember seeing that, how Henry rips the door off and just hits Batista with it, and he announced he has to vacate the World Heavyweight Championship.
Yep.
So number one, Batista looks legitimately devastated. Like, I don't know if it's just really good selling or he actually was devastated.
Was that his first world
title? That was his first.
Yeah, he was definitely,
He was legit devastated. And he really... I think he was selling really, really well, too, because if you watch his entrance throughout the whole thing...
He treated that title belt like it was his child, and he'd not want to give it up.
Yeah. But if you watch his entrance, he doesn't even use the arm with the tricep tear. He doesn't even use it. He just carries the title in that arm, but he doesn't do his whole machine gun
firework pyro thing.
Doesn't do any of it. He carries the title with the injured arm, and then just the body language is so key here.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'll say the crowd absolutely adored him here. And when he makes his announcement, the guy legit sounds like he's about to go break down into tears. And then they get some crowd reaction shots after he makes his announcement. There was a woman crying. Number one, there was a bunch of people crying. People were legitimately devastated. And here's the thing: Batista made that championship feel important.
Yes.
He made it feel, and this is going to be a big thing we talk about today, feeling. He makes it feel like it's the most important thing in the world. And you believe him. Did you believe him during his speech?
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
I rewatched it. I was like, man, Batista just won this thing, and now all of a sudden he's got to give it up like that.
He's had it for 9 months at this point, 10 months. He dethroned Triple H,
Yeah.
and he had that great storyline where he did what they wanted Orton to do at that point in time. They tried with Orton, it didn't really work, and then they tried with Batista, and everybody loved him, and they did it right. But the body language here is everything. Once he hands that World Heavyweight title, he doesn't even look at it. He hands the title to Teddy, doesn't even look at it, because he knows it's not his anymore. He can't defend it.
Yep.
He says, "I've always wanted to be the kind of champion that would come out and defend my title against everybody and anybody. And I'm unable to do that as champion right now. And as the champion, I have a responsibility to make sure the legacy," there's a good word for the day, legacy of this championship continues.
Oh, yes.
And I'm paraphrasing a little bit there. But I was like, wow, they're treating that title with so much respect. And they make it feel like it's the most important.
I miss the big gold.
Yeah, I miss that title so much. But then he goes around, and then here's the more compelling thing. He goes around, and he thanks the staff at ringside. He goes around, he thanks the timekeeper, he shakes Tony Chimmel's hand, he hugs Cole and Taz. The guy's actually in tears during all this. And Cole and Taz don't look like they didn't even... I'm sure they knew earlier in the day that this was going to happen. I'm sure they did. They had to have briefed the roster. Yeah. But they look devastated. He thanks them for working with him on the road while he's... But it feels like he made the whole segment feel like it was a presidential conference or something like that. Like it was a major press conference. And I think WWE doesn't do this very much anymore. They don't make their champion... They don't have their champion thank the staff. They don't have the champion act like a leader. Batista acted like the leader of Friday Night Smackdown.
Yeah.
Like, Teddy may be in charge in kayfabe. Teddy may be the guy running the show, in quotation marks.
But there's locker room leaders. And there's good and bad ones out there. Batista was definitely one of them.
But I'd like to remind everybody, Undertaker is currently on SmackDown at this point in time, too. Full-time on SmackDown. Oh, yeah. So he was, unironically, your backstage locker room leader. But Batista was the on-camera
locker room leader.
It felt like it to me anyway. And then he doesn't even look at that title. He thanks the fans for supporting him. He thanks them for being with him during his championship reign, and he vows to come back and reclaim what's his. And then as a follow up to it, we go to commercial. But as a follow up, we get a during commercial segment where Batista walks around out of the arena. He's leaving. He's walking out. He meets up with some of the backstage crew and the other wrestlers who he had been friendly with in kayfabe and in real life. Let's just listen to some of the names I'm going to say here. He first shakes hands and thanks Lashley. Well, that's still very relevant today.
Yeah.
Lashley's still killing it.
Bobby Lashley, man.
A future world champion in his own right. I can't wait to talk about when Batista comes back and he and Lashley have like a mini feud, which is great. Because Lashley was in his rookie year at this point in time. Like, he still had the hard-hitting Titantron video, which I'm like, okay. He visits Road Warrior Animal.
All right, like, do a legend right there.
Legacy.
I met him. He's cool.
He talks to Animal, and Animal tells him, "You're just getting started. I want to thank you for being my world champion on SmackDown." He bumps into Howard Finkel, who announced him as the new world champion at WrestleMania 21. He shakes hands with Jimmy Corderas, referee, and then there's a great little moment with Arn Anderson, where Arn Anderson also tells him, "You're just getting started. This is just a minor bump in the road for you. You're going to be back, and you're going to be better than ever." And then Batista goes, "Thank you, sir. Yes, sir." He's so respectful. He treats Arn Anderson like the legend the guy is. And I'm like, we don't do that with our legends anymore. Most of the time, our legends get beaten up by somebody on Raw. Yep. And I'm like, Okay, sure. Our legends have been beaten up, but now they're not being respected.
Prime example, the Fiend and Mick Foley.
Yeah, they get beaten up, and they're used to put somebody new over, and I'm all for it. And I'm all for nostalgia acts, though, but at least show the guys that have come before and done what you're doing now. Show them the respect they deserve.
Absolutely.
And that's what Batista's all about there. And then, of course, to close out that little mini segment there, the little backstage, he bumps into Rey Mysterio. And they have a nice little moment where he shares a hug with him, and Rey promises to win the world title for Batista and for Eddie Guerrero and to carry on the legacy. And we're going to keep saying that word throughout this recording.
Legacy.
That's what this episode really feels like. Because we cut back to Teddy Long, and Teddy's first comment when he gets the mic, and I like to point out, he doesn't say a word during Batista's segment. He just wanted to give him time to talk. Teddy gets on the mic and says, and I'm going to quote him verbatim here, he says, "The legacy of this championship must continue." And I'm like, okay, I'd just like to point out, Teddy, this is not the WCW World Heavyweight title. This is not the NWA. This is the spiritual successor to them. And I will admit, that World Heavyweight Championship did have a legacy there and then. It had Triple H, Goldberg, Shawn Michaels, Randy Orton, and Benoit up until that point. I don't think I'm missing anybody. There'd only been a select few to win that World Heavyweight title.
I was about to say somebody else, but I'm thinking of a different belt.
I don't think
anybody else had it. I was going to say Hulk Hogan, but I'm thinking of the Undisputed title.
I don't think up until that point there had been very many World Heavyweight Champions. And I remember looking on Smackdown on the WWE.com at that point in time, and that's it. Where they still have a championship reign section, and there was only 6 slots at that point in time. And Batista was number 7. So he announces that the main event for that evening is going to be an over-the-top rope battle royal to crown your next World Heavyweight Championship. To crown the next World Heavyweight Champion. And I just want to comment again how important he made that championship feel. And I guess that must have been the big thing they were pushing backstage, is make that belt feel like the most important thing in the world.
Yep.
And I don't think we do that enough in modern wrestling. We really don't. Like, even the Universal title and WWE title, which at time of recording Roman Reigns holds both of them, they're world-class championships, but they don't feel like it. The last time it felt even close to this was when Roman Reigns had to step down as Universal Champion or WWE Champion because his leukemia came back. That's the last time it felt like that. And I don't even know how long ago that was.
I feel like we have too many belts on televised wrestling to pay attention to even one.
Yeah. But we don't do this enough in modern wrestling anymore. We certainly try to, but 2 segments back-to-back, which are technically just one massive promo segment, dedicated to the questions surrounding the World Heavyweight Championship situation, really drive home its legacy and importance to the roster. Nowadays, I think it feels like just a prop for a storyline.
Yep.
And it still technically was at that point in time, but it felt
like much more than a prop.
Yeah, I agree. And as soon as Teddy leaves the ring, they get his theme music going. Cole and Taz are freaking out about the main event being a World Heavyweight Championship Battle Royal. But then we get our actual first match, which I'm so excited to talk about this. But I want to add a very important preface. This is a Chris Benoit match, and neither Dewey nor I are going to comment on the Benoit situation as a whole.
We are only here to talk about Benoit the wrestler.
We are here to talk about the Benoit the wrestler. We're not going to talk about anything
outside of that.
We're just
Benoit the wrestler here.
That's it. That's not a thing.
Yep.
The only comment I'll say is that it was a despicable act, and that's that.
That's it.
That's it.
I'm going to say the same thing, too.
That's it. So let's get into our first actual match of the night, and I'm very excited to talk about this.
Who do we got?
We got Chris Benoit versus Randy Orton as Booker T's substitute in the final of a best-of-7 series for the United States Championship. And we get a little
back when that title looked good.
That title, I still do like how it looks now, but I preferred the classic.
The classic one is
but it's very beautiful. But we get a recap of how we got to this point with Booker T and Sharmell cheating Benoit out of the first 3 matches in the series and thinking he's got it in the bag. Booker says he's got a groin injury and asks Teddy for a substitute. And he's clearly faking the entire time. He's clearly faking it. So, not just in kayfabe, but he's faking it in...
Just to get away from Benoit.
Yeah, just to get away from Benoit. He doesn't want to wrestle him. And so he asks for a substitute. And he picks Randy Orton to be his substitute, who up until that point had been in a near year-long feud with The Undertaker, culminating in a loss inside Hell in a Cell at Armageddon just a couple of weeks earlier. And I'm just commenting on the hype package itself. When Booker asks Orton to be his substitute, Orton looks like he's absolutely at his lowest. He looks like, I've been through the worst thing in the world. He doesn't know what's next for him. He looks lost because he's like, I just got destroyed by The Undertaker in the most brutal match up in WWE at that point in time. Not the match itself, but the concept.
That whole storyline.
That whole storyline. And Booker sells him on the idea that I'll be the champ, but you're going to get all the glory. So, even though Orton becomes Booker's substitute, Benoit wins the following matches back to back to back, ties up the series at 3 apiece. And so I want to comment again. That's how we got here. I want to comment again on how important they made the mid-card championship feel. They made the championships feel so important. There's that word again, feeling. I'm not a touchy-feely kind of person, but they're making things feel more important than they actually are. And that's a good thing, though. It should be. This is SmackDown's mid-card title. It feels like the most important thing in the world to both of these guys. And then right before the match, we get it. And this is something really cool. I really like this touch. We get a quick segment with Teddy Long and Orton, Orton's like, can I be in the main event too? Can I wrestle for the World Heavyweight title? And Teddy says no. They answer a quick question. People are like, well, Orton's got a United States Championship match. Can he be in the main event too? Can he do both? Because he's not, if he wins the U.S. title match, he doesn't actually win the title. Booker T does.
Yeah.
He wants to win the World Heavyweight Championship. And Teddy says no. And Orton protests. He's like, but I'm not even, this is not even my victory if I win. And Teddy says, you made the commitment to wrestle on Booker T's behalf. He made his own decision. Technically, it's Booker's match, and it's gotta happen. Booker is wrestling, but Orton is his proxy for that.
Yep.
And I was like, wow. I want to say this. We never see this kind of thing anymore.
Nope.
This was so unique, wasn't it? It felt so different.
It was like Randy Orton's Booker T, and that's it.
That's it. And I'm like, wow, that's real. Have you seen anything like this?
That's a classy way to do a substitution in a match.
Yeah, but have you ever seen anything like this since this kind of thing? I can't remember any of them doing a substitute. And the only other best of 7 series that I can remember, and this is actually a good thing, was Sheamus and Cesaro in their best of 7 series. And it felt like, and I mean this in the best way, it felt like they were trying to recapture the magic of that, and they did it really well. It was very, very good. But there was no big payoff like here. There's a big payoff. And then we get one more payoff the following week, but I'll talk about that after. But we never see this anymore. I wish we'd do more about this. And now let's get on to the match itself, because we've talked about enough before.
We've been building this up.
I'm sorry. So, it's a very good TV match, first and foremost. And I just quickly, I put some highlights in there. Number one, Benoit fakes that Booker hit him with a crutch. Booker came out with 2 crutches to the ring. He did his whole entrance with a crutch, too. The whole pyro and the head shaking and everything.
Bow down to was this King Booker?
No, this was
not King Booker.
This was before King
Booker.
Booker.
She said Charmel. I was like, this might have been King Booker era. And I was like,
yeah, no. This is just before that. But Benoit fakes that Booker hit him with a crutch behind the referee's back. And then Booker and Charmel get ejected from ringside. And he absolutely blows a gasket. But I want to say, and I mean this, I laughed so hard at Booker's reaction. It was priceless. And Taz was freaking out on Booker's behalf.
Yep.
It was so funny. I want to comment on the chops Benoit was hitting. Oh my gosh, they were brutal. Yeah. Orton's chest was actually bleeding at one point from them. I know Benoit was a physical wrestler, but I'm like, wow, this one, you really feel it. And then about halfway through the match, Orlando Jordan, of all people, jumps Benoit.
I have not heard that name in so long.
Neither have I. Jordan jumps Benoit after a ref bump, because of course there's a ref bump in WWE. But during the ref bump, Booker sneaks back in, clearly totally fine, and swings the crutch at Benoit and misses wildly while Taz insists that Booker's injured. And I'm like, Taz, come on, man.
That's the best part about Taz back in the day. He always defended the bad guy.
And it was so good, though.
Oh, yeah.
I do love Corey Graves on Raw. Corey Graves is fantastic. Yes. But with Taz doing it, it feels so different. And it's not just, again, it's personal.
Taz and Corey Graves have different attitudes and personalities. So, yes, I can definitely see that.
We get... And again, he's just selling, Booker's injured. How is he doing this? It's a miracle. And I'm like, okay, this is hysterical, but this is really good. Meanwhile, we're getting quality wrestling in the ring, despite the ref bump. That was totally unnecessary, but I get it. They wanted to advance it. Then we get a great, and I mean this genuinely, an amazing counter from an RKO attempt. This is before Orton started doing the punt and everything like that. We get an amazing counter from an RKO into a crossface that Orton immediately, and I mean like within 3 seconds, taps out to, and the ref doesn't see it. And then just a couple other minor things before the end. Cole refers to Orton as a Viper, and this is before the Viper thing was...
This is when he was doing
this is when he was the Legend Killer, and they announced him as the Legend Killer, Randy Orton. And I'm like, wow, is that a sign of things to come? Were they teasing an early nickname? I don't know. It was cool. And then, of course, the referee's not looking again. Booker hits Benoit from behind with the U.S. Championship in the head. And Orton steals the win. And Orton's face is priceless after he realizes, I won the match. But I don't get anything for it. I just... What does it mean to get the glory here? He's just like, oh, sure, Booker gets the championship. And it's just great all-around storytelling. What did you think about this match?
Oh, it was phenomenal. I love the story it told. It definitely told a very good story about the best of 7. They kept that in the story. They're bringing Orton in as this new, I guess, up-and-comer guy. They're fading away from the Legend Killer because he just got killed by Undertaker. So there's that. We got Benoit being Benoit, killing it. Sharmell and Booker getting ejected, then coming back in. I like sometimes a good ref bump can actually be a good ref bump.
Yeah.
Because there are ref bumps and then there's actual storytelling, we need more than one referee out here.
Yeah.
Did they even get did they get a second referee?
No, they didn't.
It was the same guy.
It was Nick Patrick the entire time. And I like to preface, they added a senior referee, Nick Patrick, to the situation. He's in charge of the other referees. They wanted a senior official to oversee the final of this series. And even then, there's mud. There's a situation. There's a muddy situation.
Yep.
Cole was just saying it's like the biggest tragedy in the history of professional wrestling. But then they do emphasize, for the first time in history, a man won a championship by proxy of another man.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't know if... I don't think that would go over too well today, though. But I'm kind of glad they only did this once, and this is my genuine reaction. I'm glad they did.
It would be very confusing in modern times because of the internet. Because back in the day, we didn't have the big internet, and everybody
we did, but it wasn't as
as big as it is today.
Yeah. So yeah, just a great overall match. I enjoyed it, despite the fact that Booker won. I remember seeing this, and I was like, I don't know who either of these guys won, but I feel like the one guy got robbed. And he 100% did get robbed. And that's, that's your opening segment. And this decisively gets Orton out of the main event, so you can't even question it because the general manager, actually acting like a general manager, said, no, you can't do both. You made the commitment for this match. This is your match. You're done for the night. That's it. And then we cut to backstage where we get a mini segment with Roddy Piper, rest in peace, JBL, and Jillian Hall. Piper bumps into Jillian and JBL, who she has that terrible mole makeup on her face. And I have to laugh at this. I laughed then too. Piper bumps into her and hisses like a cat upon seeing it. I'm an idiot. I laughed. I thought it was funny.
Oh yeah, that's Piper being Piper.
It was very funny. And then Piper's there to do Piper's Pit that night with the Boogeyman.
I'm coming to get you.
I'm coming to get you. But basically, JBL talks and hypes himself up as a better guest for the Piper's Pit, and guilt trips Piper into putting him on instead of the Boogeyman. And It's just a quick little segment. I just want to note I laughed at that. It was very funny. Piper's hysterical.
It's Piper being Piper.
It was funny. Then we get a quick little thing. This is again after Eddie Guerrero passed away. Rest in peace, Eddie. We
are bigly we really miss Eddie.
We both love Eddie's work. But we get a great little moment with Vicky Guerrero and her daughter is accepting an award in Eddie's memory in El Paso. It's just a great little segment, and they really wanted you to feel the tragedy of Eddie passing, because it was a tragedy. And I'm being 100% honest here, it was a genuine tragedy.
It was a big time.
And it still was very fresh in everyone's hearts and minds, so I guess WWE really wanted to help get everybody get closure for it. And the fact that El Paso genuinely gave them this award, I looked it up, and I'm like, wow, they really did give her an award for Eddie's work. Then we cut back to in-ring. We're still not at our actual main event yet. We get JBL and the Boogeyman, the Piper's Pit segment. So
now, just a heads up, this was the one part of the show I skipped because I've already seen enough segments as is.
Fair
so
enough.
Justin, this is all you.
Okay, I'll take this, and you can give me your reaction when I recap it.
I can't wait to hear this.
First and foremost, JBL tries to hijack the segment for his self-promotion.
As he would.
It's JBL. He's still... I have issues with JBL as a human being. JBL the wrestler, great. God. JBL the wrestler, great. Very safe worker, very good worker.
Yes.
Good and
very good
character. I enjoyed the character of John Bradshaw Layfield so much. And he's basically campaigning to be elected the next World Heavyweight Champion. Is the vibe. Not actually, he knows he's got to wrestle it. He says he's got to wrestle it. But it feels like he's trying to campaign to be elected to be the next World Heavyweight Champion. And how he's going to make SmackDown return to greatness and return to normal. He said JBL's pre-booked a victory parade and a plane to fly him place to place.
This is definitely good old JBL talking
it's great.
Here.
But then, again, I'm an idiot. I laughed at this.
Yep.
Piper ignores all of that, looks at Jillian, and has a great question about the mole. What died on your face? I laughed. I can't.
That was, yeah.
Yeah, I laughed. I'm an idiot. Basically, this segment exists to further the storyline between JBL and the Boogeyman, which they're having a mini feud of sorts. I'm not really sure what they were going for with the Boogeyman here. I think they wanted to try to recapture some Undertaker magic, but I think they swung for the fences and missed.
Ruthless Aggression was definitely not the year for the gimmick characters.
Yeah.
Unless you were Boogeyman.
Yeah.
Basically, I think Boogeyman was the only gimmicky wrestler that went over, because you also had Simon Dean, the Gym Fitness, who we will be getting into.
I enjoyed Simon Dean.
He wasn't, I believe, he was in Battle Royale.
Yes, he was. I laughed at him too. But I'm not really sure what they were going for with the Boogeyman here and why this rivalry feud exists. If you can hear in the background, it is raining very heavily.
It is pouring outside.
So if you hear that, that's what that is.
Yes.
And we're recording on the second story of my church. In a classroom, so if you hear that, that's why.
Yeah.
But during the segment, the red lights come on. Cole and Taz are freaking out because the Boogeyman's coming. The Boogeyman's coming.
The clock, the staff, the smoke, the worms,
the putrid smelling smoke. Apparently, I'm like, it's smoke. What could it smell like? But
apparently, it's smoke with color.
Yeah, I don't even know. JBL's terrified and throws Jillian at the Boogeyman. But this made me just a little too grossed out. It's not uncomfortable.
Because the Boogeyman.
Yeah.
The worms.
He eats the mole off of Jillian's face. It's clearly prosthetic. It wasn't real. But he eats it off of her face. And Cole and Taz's reactions are priceless. As is JBL's. This, I guess the term is skeeved. It skeeved me out in the wrong way. Piper was praying that he would get hurt by the Boogeyman, and that was hysterical, though. I laughed at that, because he's praying into the mic, please don't hurt me, please don't hurt me. And it
being
was
a
funny.
Gimmick so good, you got Roddy Piper's begging to not hurt you. Dang.
It was very funny. And I think Cole said it best, and this just recaps the entire segment, and I wish they had, like, a segment, you know how they have the different spots you can click on Peacock? I wish they had it, the weirdest SmackDown segment ever. I really sincerely wish they had that as a title chapter.
Eating a mole off somebody.
I was disturbed for the wrong reasons.
I mean, that's the best part, too. It sounds like a Boogeyman thing.
Yeah. this would ultimately lead to a match with him and the Boogeyman at the Royal Rumble, which I can't wait to talk about the Royal Rumble '06. That's going to be a great thing to talk about.
I can't wait for us to start talking about Royal Rumbles.
Yeah.
That's going to be fun.
So we get 2 more mini segments there, and we're getting to our main event, and that's what we're very excited to talk about. We're both hyped to talk about that. We get a mini segment with Eminem and Mark Henry, which basically serves to build Mark Henry up as the next enormous monster. He's a great heel here, though. He took out Batista, and Melina, acting like a credible manager, says she's going to help him become the World Heavyweight Champion. So she can manage the World Heavyweight Champion. And basically, they treat the role, the position of being the World Heavyweight Champion, like you're in charge of SmackDown, like as I said earlier with Batista. And that's basically what this little mini segment does, is she's got 3 guys in the ring, all going to go for the World Heavyweight Champion. Also, at this point, Eminem are your WWE Smackdown Tag Team Champions. Just wanted to put that in there. And I want to comment, I love those titles. That's just me.
Oh, I miss when they had the red globe and the blue globe, and they had it separate. It was so...
They were very, very classy titles.
Yes.
And then there's one other mini thing, and this isn't even this is just something I put this in here as a note. I completely forgot about this. Finley was being built up to come to Friday Night SmackDown. And this was the last of those coming soon segments they do, not like what we recently had with over on Raw with Veer. With Veer coming soon. This was the last of the coming soon segments, but here's the thing that WWE doesn't do with these, and this is just a quick thing. I know we want to get on our main event. But these coming soon segments, they let the character develop even before. Finley tells us about his backstory, why he likes to fight, why he's proud of his Irish heritage, what fighting as an Irish person means for Finley. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. We don't do that. Instead, we just get a wrestler's face and coming soon.
Yep.
Is all we get. And I'm like, why don't we build the character up? That was cool. Like, we've gotten a little bit
You know
of
what else I missed, though? And this is with the backstory promos we got. When WWF is in the new generation era and they bring in a gimmicky wrestler, like, prime example, Duke the Dumpster Droese, they would do vignettes of him taking out trash, building up his character.
Yeah.
I miss that.
I wish we do that more. We don't do that enough in WWE or in most pro wrestling very much anymore. Like, and this is not a knock against AEW, but they just kind of throw the person in. Or Tony Khan will make an announcement on Twitter, we have a big surprise coming.
Hey, yo, blah, blah, blah is all elite.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's not a bad thing. It's very cool to have the shock value. But we don't get the build-up of this, this is a new wrestler coming to the show. We need to build up their character and develop who they are.
We need to show them all the things they did prior to them coming to us to show you, the viewers, what you're in for with this wrestler.
We get a little bit of it in NXT, and we're at the point in time where we have NXT 2.0. We get a little bit of it, but not nearly as much as we did on Friday.
Remember when the Wyatt family was debuting?
They made that
and they had
huge.
all those vignettes.
Yeah. They made Finley coming to Friday Night SmackDown feel like a huge deal. And I've since watched the following week's episode of SmackDown. I'm just going through and watching from this point on. And I'm like, wow, this is really fun. And then the match itself that he has the following week is great. We're not talking about that now, but it's just great. And then
it's main event time.
It's main event time. And this, I'm very excited.
I have the lineup of who is in this Battle Royale. I will gladly run it down.
We have a great run. Go for it.
We got Sylvain Grenier.
Okay.
Matt Hardy. Brian Kendrick. Super Crazy. Simon Dean. John Bradshaw Layfield. Vito. Orlando Jordan. Mercury. Nunzio. Mark Henry. Road Warrior Animal. Psychosis. Kurt Angle. William Regal. Rey Mysterio. Paul Burchill, Paul London, Nitro, and Lashley.
It's quite the lineup.
We got a pretty... This was definitely the SmackDown roster back in the day.
This was a great SmackDown roster. It's like they put everybody in this match because they... Although I feel very bad saying this, it only feels like a few of them are on the World Heavyweight Championship level.
Yeah, some of them were just thrown in there. Yeah, some of them were tag teams just doing the tag team stuff.
Yeah. But it still felt like a
fun battle royale.
It was very fun. Also, I'd like to point out, London and Kendrick get their tag team entrance where they both sprint to the ring And it's really cool, and I'm just like, I love those two as a tag team. They felt like the definition of tag team wrestling at that point. They feel like early predecessors of the Young Bucks, in a way.
That's what everybody wanted to be, Kendrick and Paul.
Yeah. Those
were
good.
The dudes. And the Hardy Boys.
Yeah. Speaking of Hardy Boys, you said we get Matt Hardy in this. This is after Matt Hardy lost his feud to Edge from Raw with the whole Lita controversy.
Lita thing, yep.
I love his theme music. I just put that in there. I love his theme music. It's very great. JBL still selling his Terror of the Boogeyman.
This is now the real question. What gimmick was Matt Hardy in at the time? Was this V1?
This was
kind of before V1, or was this Broken Heart after?
This was after V1, but this was Matt Hardy, I Will Not Die, Matt Hardy.
Are we about to enter Matt Hardy MVP as tag champs?
We're 1 year removed. No, we're a year removed.
Yeah.
We're a year removed, but it's still very fun. And I can't wait to talk about that. That's going to be fun to talk about at some point. And then, of course, we get the surprise entrance, Kurt Angle. But before I go any farther, I just wanted to add this. Rey Mysterio's in the match, as we said, and he feels like a credible challenger. He's vowed to be the World Heavyweight Champion for Eddie and for Batista.
Grave and Batista.
He vowed to do it for both of them. But they don't even give him his whole entrance. They start it during commercial, which we don't do very much of that anymore, or they just skip people's entrances altogether. They just don't. I
know at some indie shows that I go to, they'll do a big commercial break, and then they'll have all 6. It's usually a scramble match. They'll have all 6 wrestlers come out during commercial, and then right after the intermission clock or whatever, they come back and all the wrestlers are in the ring.
Yep.
I think that's what they basically did.
But they had
you had to be there for the entrances.
But you only get a couple of. But you do see like JBL come out. You see Lashley come out.
I feel like everybody big, but that's also the weird part. Rey Mysterio was pretty big at the time.
Rey was huge at the time. Also, he had just started. This was a couple months prior. He had started using the Booyaka 619. And this is like the demo version of the song, so it's not as well mixed as we know it now.
As we know it today, yep.
It's a little odd, but it's still good. And then, of course, as I said, we get the surprise entrant, Kurt Angle. And again, I want to say this. Out of this whole show, where I have had nostalgia glasses on, but I want to say this. This is the match that made me fall in love with professional wrestling. Number one, the pop that Kurt Angle gets is amazing. It is, I guess, second only to Batista's throughout the whole night. The "You Suck" chants are back, or thing in full force.
That's because wasn't he a Raw guy coming to SmackDown?
Yeah, and I'm going to comment on that. They made that a huge deal. But then the other thing is, I forgot he had Daivari managing him. I did not know he had Daivari managing him.
A very short period of time.
Very short, very questionable.
Because I saw that too, and I was like, something doesn't look right here.
Kurt Angle, the manager, didn't feel right. But then JBL's like, I'm going to defend SmackDown's honor, and he tries to take out Kurt Angle, and he immediately gets thrown over the top rope. I laughed. JBL looks like he's ready to hurt somebody over that, and it was funny. So Kurt Angle was coming over from Raw. This was a major shock in kayfabe, and I guess, well, again, in kayfabe, they announced his contract expired, and Teddy picked him up for SmackDown, and Daivari says later in another episode of SmackDown, he found a loophole to bring him to SmackDown. At this point in time, for me, I had only ever watched SmackDown. I had not watched Raw, so I had no idea who Kurt Angle was, apart from playing SmackDown vs. Raw 06. I didn't know who he was as a person.
One of the hand-down best SmackDown vs. Raw games.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2005. Excuse me, 2005. SmackDown vs. Raw 05.
Still a pretty good game.
Still a very good game. Of course, I knew who John Cena was, and I knew who Edge was. I knew John Cena had just lost the title on Raw, but I'd never watched it, so I didn't know who Kurt Angle was. And this is just a me thing. At this point in time, I was in wrestling in middle school. And so when I found out he was a legitimate Olympic gold medalist in wrestling, I was so drawn to him. He's still my favorite wrestler. And this is just a cool thing. I think I told you this, but my coach knew and went to college with Kurt Angle.
Tell me this. Yes.
He showed me a yearbook photo. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're standing right next to him. He's like, yeah, we've lost touch over the years, but I was like, that's the coolest thing in the world to me.
I met Kurt once at a convention. He is one of the nicest dudes ever. He's very cool.
He seems like a very
He's
legit,
a very
nice
down-to-earth
dude.
person. He's so cool.
I'm glad he's gotten through his
He's one of those people, he's just happy he's there.
Yeah. He said he's glad to be alive at this point with everything he's had to go through medically and with his addiction problems over the years. I'm so glad he's gotten himself straightened out and fixed up. And I'm
And now he's doing Cameo.
Yeah, he's great. And so let's talk about the match itself. Besides the entrances, I'm sorry, everybody, this is going a little bit long, but we said this is a 2-part episode. So next week we're gonna have Dewey's.
Oh boy!
And I can't wait to watch that. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm excited to.
You're in for a treat.
So let's talk about some highlights from this match. Kurt Angle and Mark Henry fighting to throw somebody through the announce table, either one of them, and then it's Angle who goes through in a World's Strongest Slam. The referees are all freaking out at Mark Henry, and he just bellows at them, and they cut to a different camera, so it's a different mic input. You can hear him bellowing things at the referee from a different microphone, and it's just the funniest thing in the world. And I was like, wow, he's unstoppable.
That's my favorite stuff, when you hear the wrestlers screaming at everybody off camera. It's so funny.
Henry and Lashley get a great, and I mean outstanding back and forth. That was awesome. And I want to preface this too. Even though Lashley didn't win, they clearly wanted him to be the future of the company and be as good as he is now. They clearly knew what they had with him, or they didn't know what they had ready. They knew what they were sitting on, and they knew they were going to build him, and they did. And they really wanted to give him a good standout segment. Mysterio eliminating Eminem within 1 minute of each other. That was great. Literally within 1 minute of each other, and Melina starts losing it at ringside.
Oh yeah.
Even though Eminem eliminate a lot of people from the roster. I don't have the rundown of who eliminated who, but they eliminated a decent chunk of people.
I'll probably pull that up.
Yeah, I'll keep going. The back and forth between Henry and Mysterio was awesome storytelling, and the crowd are just desperate for Rey Mysterio to win the World Heavyweight title. Because they knew, as we did, he had been Batista's tag team championship partner.
He's also tag teaming with Eddie and doing some incredible stuff with him. So
Eddie, and they were like, he's got to do it for both of them. He's got to do it, and they're freaking out.
Did he have this is the real question. Did he have the arm break?
I think he did. I don't remember offhand, but I think he did. There were massive Eddie chants the whole time for Rey. Cole screams himself hoarse at one point. Not to the point of WrestleMania 19, where he's just hoarse during the main event, he can barely talk. But he screams himself hoarse, chanting on Rey. And then Henry forgets about Angle altogether, because he's like, I'm going to destroy everybody else. Angle's done. And then the look on his face when Henry realizes Angle's still in is the funniest thing. Daivari screaming for Angle to get up and fight back is awesome. There is an amazing Angle slam at one point.
Oh, yeah.
I love that move so much because it just comes out of nowhere. Like the RKO. He can just pop up and give you one. And then, I want to comment on this. I want to get your opinion on this. The closing couple minutes of this match feel like a mini match in and of themselves. Like how the Royal Rumble sometimes can.
Yes.
But it feels like an early prelude of what we would eventually see at the 07 Rumble with Michaels and The Undertaker, where that's basically was a mini match in and of itself, and like what they would eventually do with Michaels and The Undertaker at the Royal Rumble 07. It felt so huge there.
And you know something about the Royal Rumble history?
Yeah.
07 is one of the
07's a great show.
Up there Rumbles.
07
one of
is
the
outstanding.
Best.
It's such a good show.
From
top to bottom.
Rumble.
Top to bottom, so good. The German suplex that Angle does on Henry was amazing. And Cole and Taz, again, drive it really home. They make it feel important about how the heck do you suplex a 400-plus pound man? Angle was on another level at this point. And unfortunately, this is when he was dealing with his painkiller problems. And he's very, very vocal about this at that point in time. But he's just on another level. And then this is the cool part. Even though they all chant, "You suck" at Kurt Angle, the crowd completely embraces Angle winning the championship. They make it, they're like, okay, I'm okay with this. It wasn't Rey, but I'm cool with this. They're just like, it wasn't Henry. I think that's the best way to put it, is it wasn't Henry, and Angle came in as this hero, like a genuine hero to stop this. And I'll say it again, WWE treats Angle winning the World Heavyweight Championship like a momentous occasion. The pyro, the confetti, they make it huge. And I don't think in today's time, they don't do this. They need to do this more. They made that belt, that World Heavyweight Championship, feel like the most important thing in the entire world.
Plus, on top of that, they did it with a Battle Royale as their
They did
big
it with a
match.
Battle Royal. A Battle Royal.
A Battle Royale. Not a one-on-one, not a WrestleMania moment. A Battle Royale on SmackDown.
Yeah. on a random episode of SmackDown.
On a random Friday night.
And it was so good. And Angle was in the middle of this really weird heel run, but then this moment turned him face on SmackDown. Because I've since gone back and watched the following episode of Raw. I can't wait to talk about that with you at some point, because that was a whole nother animal. But Angle's basically a heel on Raw. It has an amazing match with Shawn Michaels on Raw, but he's basically a heel there and then. And then he turns himself face because he gets rid of Daivari as his manager. And I'm just following this up, everybody. He goes back to SmackDown the following week, and the roster shows him so much respect. They're saying, "Congrats, champ, you deserve it. If anybody does, if anybody was going to get the title off of away from Henry, we're glad it was you." And they made it feel like the roster respected him, number one, and that they were genuinely glad. Okay, if we're going to have a new world champion, this is an unknown.
It's a pretty good guy to start off with.
It's a good world champion for SmackDown.
A change of pace, as they
a complete change of pace, because Angle as world champion, he feels as legit as it gets. Not like Batista at that point in time. And I'm saying this with all due respect to Batista. He's there when he's not actively in wrestling duty. He's there in a suit and tie. Angle's ready to go. He's in his singlet. He's got the gear on, and he's ready to go.
Oh yeah.
You're just like, oh, this guy could have a match at any second.
Against anybody.
He's ready for anything and everything. And I'm excited to talk more about this as we go on here. But yeah, that's basically Friday Night Smackdown, January 13th, 2006. My first intro to WWE and pro wrestling as a whole. What did you think about this show now that we've talked about it extensively?
As much as there was a lot of segments, and both matches were 20 minutes plus, I did enjoy watching it.
It was a good show.
It was a pretty good show. It
was a
told a lot of
show.
story. It gave the correct, you're going to say it again, attitude or feeling towards what was to come with SmackDown.
Yeah. It was so good. And then it pointed us in the direction towards the Royal Rumble. Towards what they were going to do with Mania. I was so hyped. I'm so hyped to talk about WrestleMania 22 with you, because that was my first Mania.
That's a good Mania.
And it's a pretty fun. It's a pretty fun show.
Talk about.
It's a pretty fun show. And that's my first intro to Friday Night Smackdown. Our first episode called Firsts. That was episode 1.
There's going to be a part 2 of Firsts.
There is going to be a part 2 of Firsts next week.
We're talking about Attitude Era Raw, but not
Era Raw.
We're not in the depths. I mean, Stone Cold was there, but this was like the beginning of Stone Cold Vince McMahon. We're getting that Attitude Era.
Okay. Because I haven't watched this yet. We wanted to get this first episode recorded and give new content out.
Yes.
So we both watched this episode of SmackDown before doing this. Dewey and I both work full-time jobs. I work too with my church. So we haven't been able to coordinate getting to watch this show yet, but we're going to in the next couple of days, and we hope to have it out for you all next week. And we hope you really enjoyed this first show. This is our first full-length episode.
Oh, yeah.
If you guys like what you heard today, if you enjoyed this at any point in the show, or if you just like me and Dewey rambling to each other about pro wrestling, because we are two marks with one microphone.
2 marks with one mic.
This is what Dewey and I work the same day job during the day.
And this is all we do.
This is what we
do whenever I
downtime.
See Justin, I walk in and me and him just go off. We start.
And that's what we do. And but if you at any point you enjoyed what you heard from us today, go ahead and like this, share it, subscribe to the channel, because we're going to keep putting out content whenever we can. And we're very excited to be doing this together. This is a journey Dewey and I have wanted to take for a good couple of months now, and we've been really looking forward to this. And leave a comment. What did you think? What did you?
What do you want us to talk about?
What do you want us to talk about? Give us some topic ideas. Again, we're trying to keep this PG and accessible to everybody, and that's what we're all about. And this is a community. We want to create a community here where everybody is welcome. We don't care who you are. We don't care what you've done. We care about who you are, obviously. But we don't care about the things you've done or mistakes you've made. Everybody.
If you're a wrestling fan and you want to talk wrestling, we don't care who you are.
Yeah.
You could be completely opposite spectrums of the world, but still everyone in the middle meets with that one thing, and that one thing here is professional
and that's what
wrestling.
This is all about. And this was just a really fun first episode, and we hope you all really enjoyed it. And again, we'll hopefully see you next week for Firsts Part 2. This is 2 Marks, 1 Mic. Thank you again, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Year.